Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katina and I am the creator of Live, Life, Learn. And thank you so much for joining me again. I created this channel for those who are interested in getting on a debt-free journey. That's what this channel is all about. I started my debt-free journey in June of this year, and I wanted to simply to share my story, to share what I am learning, my ups and downs, and take you guys along with me. So if you're interested in getting on a debt-free journey, starting a debt-free journey, getting out of debt, or just learning basic information about finances, this is the place to be. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get started on the next topic. And y'all know I got notes because that's what I do. So we're going to have a conversation today about emergency funds, aka also known as rainy day funds. So this topic is interesting and extremely important because everybody needs to have an emergency fund. You know, everybody has emergencies, right? We all have some sort of financial emergency that pops up out of nowhere. And I know for me, I was just simply not prepared for any kind of money emergency. So I decided that this would be a great conversation to talk about because God knows that we all need to have some sort of emergency funds for those unexpected expenses that occur that are not typically in our budget. You know, those things that just pop up out of nowhere and you're like, I ain't got the money for that. So that's why I wanted to talk about the importance of emergency funds and why we all need to have one, right? Okay. So I got a few notes, of course. So I wanted to make sure that whatever information that I bring you guys that is fact-based and, you know, personally based, right? So I'm just going to talk about and explain what an emergency fund or either a rainy day fund looks like, all right? So an emergency fund is a separate savings account or bank account that is used to cover or help with offset some expenses that you may have of unforeseen things that might occur. Specifically, unforeseen money situations that may occur, right? Because we all have those times where shit just pop up and you need the money, right? So that's why it's important to have a fund such as an emergency fund. So the account should be earmarked as such. The account should be earmarked as an emergency fund. So what I mean by that is your emergency fund should be completely separate from your savings account, right? It should not be one and the same. You want to make sure that you keep those accounts separate. I have made the mistake a few times of conflating the two, right? And so that kind of messed me up because I had money that I had designated as an emergency, quote unquote. Okay. I had that in just a kind of mixed up and mingling with my savings account, and that just did not work out at all. So I just wanted to make it clear that it's important to separate emergency from savings. And you also want to make sure that that emergency fund is a liquid account, meaning that you could easily access that account at any time. So let me just give you just a couple of points about what an emergency look like. But before I say that, I want to just kind of preference that by saying everybody emergency is different. No one has, you know, the same kind of definition of what an emergency might look like. So I wanted to be clear on that, but I just wanted to give you guys an example of what an emergency could be, because I'm gonna be honest, I had that all messed up. I was using what I deem as emergency money for, like, I needed to go to the mall, okay, and buy something. So, but examples of an emergency could be something like a car repair. You know, if you have a car, God forbid, if you get a flat, or, you know, your car needs to be towed, or you just need to have some sort of urgent maintenance work done on your car that was unforeseen. An emergency fund would be good for that. That would be a great thing for an emergency fund to have. I got to get this off my phone, you guys. Sorry. This little message that pops up on my phone. But again, car repairs is great for an emergency fund usage. Also, hospital visits. If you have, for an example, have to go to the ER, you know, and there is a copay that you have to pay. An emergency fund would be great for that. I know for me, I had a few pop-up emergencies that I was not prepared for this month, because who prepares for emergencies? Like, not very many people. Okay, as you can see, I have a lot of work to do. But I had some doctor visits for myself as well as my son that arise this month, and we have copays based on our insurance, and that was something that was not, you know, in the budget for, if you will. So I needed to utilize some emergency money to pay for those copays. Another prime example of an emergency is like a dental visit. Okay, it starts off being a teeth cleaning, but it ends up being something else. Or maybe you have a dental emergency, and I've had a few of those in which I needed to have some dental procedures done. And they're like, okay, Katina, your balance is $550. And I'm like, say what? You know, and I'm like, don't the insurance cover that? And they're like, girl, it has already covered as much as it's going to cover. This is your out of pocket expense. And I'm like, oh my God. So, you know, those little things and flare ups occur. And when it comes to your health, you know, you don't want to delay those things. So having an emergency fund in place will be great for covering those sort of issues that arise that, you know, of course, you had no idea that they were going to pop up. Another consideration for an emergency fund use is if you're, you know, laid off your job, you lost your job, you had an unforeseen reduction in your income. Also, if you have a home and you have an emergency home repair that might occur, you know, emergency funds are really good for that as well. So just to kind of give you a few examples of what an emergency fund could be used for. Okay. And let me tell y'all, it is extremely useful to have one. There's nothing like having the peace of mind of having an emergency fund set up, knowing that if something happens, if something breaks down, something pops up, or maybe it doesn't even, you know, it's not with you, it's with a close family member or a close friend in which they might need a little help, a little financial help. And you might be able to go into your emergency fund to help them out, to tie them over. You know, it's so just rewarding and so comforting and peaceful to know that you have access to some sort of emergency cash, right? Not just for yourself, but to help a loved one, someone that you care about, get out of a jam that they're in. So another reason to have one, of course, in place. Now, let's talk about what you should have in this emergency fund, okay? So most experts, financial experts, say that you should have at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses in your emergency account. Now, listen, we ain't got that. Okay, I'm not there yet. Not yet. Okay, I do have an emergency fund that I need to deem as such. I haven't done it yet, but I am going to do it tomorrow. Okay, but 3 to 6 months of living expenses, that's a lot, and I'm gonna be straight up. It's a lot. Okay, we ain't got that like that yet. Yeah, not yet. We gonna get there. I can tell you that much. We are going to get there. That's for damn sure. So that's what the financial experts say. You should have 3 to 6 months already put aside, or working towards, let me just say, establishing 3 to 6 months of your income, okay, of your living expenses, if you will, in an emergency account at a bank or credit union, okay? But and other individuals, other people have said that people that I listen to and follow, you know, $1,000 would suffice. If that's all that you can start it with, you should definitely start with $1,000 and create an emergency fund starting with that grand, right? If you don't have $1,000, $500, okay? If you have $500, maybe you got an extra paycheck, you know, in that month that you got paid, or perhaps you had some money that you were fortunate enough to receive, extra money. If you have a second job in which you could pool together $500 to $1,000 to go ahead and start that emergency fund, I think that it would be a great idea to do so. Tax time is coming up, right? What is this? October? Pretty soon, tax refunds will be rolling in. It'll be a great time to go ahead and set aside money to get started and kickstart an emergency fund, because trust and believe, we all have had financial emergencies. If you haven't had one, great. If you haven't had one, you will have one. So I say that try to go ahead and push to go ahead and create that emergency fund, which is so desperately needed for all of us and is extremely important. So I want to just kind of give a little factual background about emergency funds. Now I did a little research, okay, and I pulled my information from bankrate.com, and I will put the links below, as well as the pewresearch.org about Americans and emergency fund. So just a little backdrop, little background. So more than half of Americans, or 51%, have less than 3 months worth of expenses covered in an emergency fund. Okay, again, that is more than half of Americans, or 51%, have less than 3 months worth of expenses to cover an emergency. Okay, and then the total includes 1 in 4 Americans, or 25%, who indicate having no emergency fund at all. And that is up from 21% in 2020. This is the 2020. Well, actually, the survey was for 2021, but the percentages have went up for those who do not have an emergency fund at all. So because of the global events that has transpired, okay, back since 2020, this is really has uncovered and revealed the need for an emergency fund, and it's like an alarm bell is going off. It truly is, because it's showing that there are so many people in this country who are not prepared for an emergency as little as $400. And I'm gonna be straight up, that was us. We were not prepared. There are times when I remember when my husband and I had first got married many years ago. We would have emergencies. We would have financial emergencies, and we just wasn't ready. And this was before we had our son. We were not ready for any kind of emergency whatsoever. So we would have these financial emergencies in which we had no money to cover them. Our paycheck could not cover them, clearly. We could not borrow the money from anyone, any close family member or friend, because honestly, they didn't have the money at all. And if they did, they were unable to, lend us the money at the time. So what we found ourselves like stressed out about how to deal with these money emergencies. And I'm going to be very transparent with y'all. We did not know any better, but the way we dealt with the financial emergencies is that we got payday loans. And I'm going to be very honest. I'm not going to lie. Like, I didn't know. We didn't know. We didn't know any better. We would go to the Payday Lender because we were surrounded by them. They were everywhere in our neighborhood. And so that was the next best thing we thought that we could utilize. I mean, we knew we can get a loan from the bank, a small loan. At the time, the bank did not have these little micro loans that they have right now to try to prevent people from going to payday lenders. You can now go to some banks or credit unions that provide microloans, which is amazing, at a decent interest rate. But at the time, we utilized payday lenders to help tie us over. We utilized payday lenders to help us to deal with our money emergencies. And let me tell you, it was not worth it. It wasn't worth it at all. We will borrow $50. And yes, I said $50. We did not have that either. And it is what it is. You live and learn and you grow. Live, life, learn, okay? So we'll go to the Payday Lender. And of course, they don't ask you much of anything. They approve you right away. You get cash in hand right away. So for our little pop-up emergencies, we would go borrow $50, $100, $200. And with that, the interest rate was predatory. Okay, the interest rate was predatory. The terms and conditions of the loan was predatory. And we found ourselves, if we borrow like $50, we found ourselves paying back $75 to $100 to the payday lender. And just sit on that for a second. You're borrowing $50 and you end up paying back $75 to $100, right? Because of the interest, the high interest, the predatory interest rates. So back in the day, that's how we dealt with our financial emergencies, is through payday lending, because we had no money saved. We had nobody that could lend us the money. So that's what we did. And we learned a valuable lesson about payday lending and the importance of an emergency fund. So back to my little notes. Americans' emergency savings may not be in better shape. So basically, based on the information I read, and because of the current events that's happening around the globe, things are not much better for us Americans in emergency funds. We've depleted those funds, or they were just non-existent at all, right? So some of the takeaway points from the research that I did was that more than half of Americans have less than 3 months, or they have no emergency fund at all. Twice as many Americans say they have less emergency money saved today than ever before. And of course, higher income earners are more likely to have sufficient emergency funds available to them at their disposal. So this information also varies based upon the Pew data research. It varies based on different groups, income levels, and also racial demographics, which I found very interesting. And again, if you're interested in seeing the data on that, I will have the links below. So I found that this information was interesting, and it just made me nervous, to be honest with you, not to have a designated emergency fund available. And I have a large size family, and oftentimes, we get calls or messages from family members who need to borrow money, and it's disheartening when you don't have it available to give to them, or you can't just simply give it to them and not worry about having it back. And it's just, I want to make sure that I get the message across, if nothing else, that having an emergency fund is extremely important to have. If you don't have 3 to 6 months to get started or to put in a fund or have it currently, don't worry about that. What's important is that you start one. Start an emergency fund, you guys. Start one as soon as possible. It is extremely important to do so. You want to make sure that whatever pops up, whatever emergency that you may have, that you do have something available to access. You want to be sure that, this emergency is not going to overwhelm me. It's not going to stress me out. I don't want to be in a position of, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I need to borrow money. But if you go ahead and start an emergency fund, you have already set yourself up for success. You have already set yourself up to deal with these emergencies to the extent possible, right? So it's better to have something and than have nothing. So if $500 is a far stretch for you in creating an emergency fund, don't let that discourage you. Please don't. If all you have is $50 to start one, congratulations. Seriously, congratulations. You have started one. So if you have $25 and you're like, you know what? I'm going to start this emergency fund, but I'm going to start it off with $25 and that's all I got. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. I think that's amazing. And what you're going to do is you're going to continue to put money in that account and not touch it. And really, that is the key to any account, honestly, whether it's savings or emergencies. But I'm going to keep my focus on emergency funds because savings is a completely different topic altogether, and I don't want to conflate the two. But having an emergency fund started is of the utmost importance, and you start where you can start. Don't be discouraged about the dollar amount that you started with, because that's really not the point. The point is that you start somewhere, and you continue to build that account up. I think the one of the most challenging things for me, or my husband, is that starting this account and then you just be all up in it, like everything's an emergency. So what I have learned and what we're learning currently is that we sat down and we designated what an emergency looks like. Okay. So we wanted to, really be sure that we classify an emergency as such. So an emergency doesn't mean that, we don't have what we want to eat in the house, so we're going to go get something to eat. That is not an emergency. An emergency is not for us. Now, for us, it's not, oh, damn, we didn't put enough money in the account for gas, so I need gas. We're going to have to go to the emergency account to get it. Absolutely not. Okay, that is not what that's for. Having any account requires discipline. Having this emergency account for us, it requires a level of discipline so that we won't be dipping and dabbing and, hopping up in it just because the money is available in there. No, we want to grow our emergency account. So therefore, as emergencies come, because God knows they're coming, Okay. We want to make sure that we're able to deal with them efficiently and effectively. And in an event, we have a family member that needs to, they're having a money emergency and they need to have some financial relief. We want to make sure that we are in a position to help them as well. Okay. So that is the purpose of us starting the emergency fund. I'm going to again designate that account as such tomorrow. So we will officially have an emergency fund, and I wanted to share that with you guys. I wanted to share with you all the importance of having one and why you should have one. Trust me and believe me, you want to have an emergency fund. We all have an emergencies. We all have those glaring, oh my God, what am I going to do? Money emergencies. And we want to be able to deal with them without being stressed out, without losing sleep, right? So that is the whole purpose of creating an emergency fund. It's what it is. It's for you. It's to help you. It's to, get you out of that little jam that you may find yourself in because, it was unexpected. You didn't have the money in the budget. But what you do have and have access to is the ability to access that emergency fund. So you want to start an account at a bank, at a credit union, and ideally you want to put it in a high interest savings account. So as you think about starting an emergency fund, think about where you can put this money in an account that has a high interest bearing account, savings account. You want to at least to try to, have some interest on that money since it's going to be sitting there. And for the most part, you're just going to be putting money in every time you get paid or based on whatever schedule you create, based on your budgetary means. You want to look around and search around and see what account may have a high interest yield that will benefit you, because honestly most savings accounts at banks and credit unions, interest rates are not all that are nothing at all. But if you are not at a point where you want to search around and look for an account that has a high interest on it, and you're like, you know what, I ain't got time for that, but I am going to start this emergency fund at my bank, you can go ahead and do that. Please do. I just want to share with you guys the importance of starting one and how beneficial it could be and how easy on the mind it can be and how assuring it is to have money available in a case of an emergency. Okay? So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you've learned something today about emergency funds, the importance of having one. And I would love to hear your comments about it. I would love to hear your stories, your money emergency stories, and how you dealt with them. Do you have an emergency fund? Do you plan to start one? I hope so. Come on and jump on the bandwagon or the wagon of emergencies and get your emergency account popping. Get it started. Start immediately, okay, with whatever you have. There's nothing like having that assurance that you have some money set to the side for your own little emergencies that may arise. So before I go, I do want to share something with you guys. I'm starting something new on my channel. Let me get my paper. And it's called the Weekly Word Motivator, right? It's called the Weekly Word Motivator. This kind of came to me. Most things just come to me, all right? And excuse me, you guys, these little messages, all right? These little things just, they just come to me, you guys, and I just write them down as they come. And this popped in my little head. The Weekly Word Motivator. I'm going to be doing this every week with my videos, the Weekly Word Motivator. And so for this week, y'all, although it's Thursday, but that's okay, it can still be the Weekly Word Motivator. It's going to be consistency, right? So that is the Weekly Word Motivator. Remember that. Focus on that, all right? Focus on that for the week, consistency. And in Spanish, I think it's consistencia, all right? So I'm learning a little Spanish all on my own. So again, consistency is the Weekly Word Motivator, and in Spanish it's consistencia, okay? And if I'm wrong, y'all correct me. But I wanted to speak a little bit about consistency. I feel like, this is such an important word. This consistency basically is, just being orderly, right? It's being orderly and doing things the same. Now, we don't want to be having bad habits and doing those consistently the same. We want to develop good habits and do those consistently the same. So we want to be orderly in our quest to be better, be consistent in doing the right things, be consistent in doing things that benefit you, that's going to help you to grow, right? Because consistency is repetitiveness, right? It's being repetitive in doing something over and over again. So for me, I wanted to share this word, my very first weekly word motivator, consistency, because I am consistently trying to get out of debt. And consistency should be a day-to-day process for everyone. If you are trying, whatever goal you're trying to achieve, whatever it is, whether it be financial goal, whether it be maybe some life-changing goal as it relates to health and wellness, peace of mind, whatever that thing might be, consistency should be at the forefront of your goals, right? And as you pursue your goals, you should consistently do something to pursue that goal on a daily basis. You should write your goals down. Be consistent, y'all, in your goal setting. Be consistent in doing something every day to be sure that you achieve your goals or you get closer to achieving your goal. So consistency is key to everything in life. Consistency is key to growth. You are not going to grow if you're not consistent, right? So if you're trying to get your money right, in which we're trying to do, I'm trying to get out of debt. I'm on a debt-free journey. I consistently have to look at my budget. I consistently have to look at my goal set, the goals that I've set for myself. I consistently have to review what my plans are in order to be debt-free by a certain time. So therefore, I won't be distracted. I won't get distracted. So keep your eyes on your goals and be sure to be consistent as you move along. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you have an amazing day. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll love to hear from you. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.